to welcome you to the, is it the fifth, I believe, panel discussion in our series of Valpo at Work panels. And we're thrilled to have three people with us this evening. I'll introduce them by name and title in a minute, but they've taken different career paths to their nonprofit leadership positions at the moment, at least at this moment in their career. Jennifer Wright is going to join us. She's the president and CEO of Hilltop Neighborhood House. Bill Higbee is the president and CEO of Porter County Community Foundation. And Bob Franco is the president and CEO of the VNA of Northwest Indiana here in Valpo. Aaron Morrison is going to moderate the panel, and I'm going to turn it over to him in a second, but you have the ability to ask questions through the chat box throughout. The session is being recorded, and Bob and Bill and Jennifer, once you get here, thank you very much for taking the time to join us. We really appreciate very helpful and impactful sessions for our students to hear from you all. The replay of this will be posted on our YouTube channel. So with that, again, welcome. I'll turn my camera off, turn it over to Aaron, and thanks again.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, Tom. My name is Aaron Morrison. I am the Assistant Director of the Institute for Leadership and Service here at Valparaiso University. And it is my honor and privilege to be here with you all this evening, moderating this panel on nonprofit leadership and organizations. And so our first question that we have for our panelists tonight is, each of you, if you could tell us what led you to leading a nonprofit organization.
Let's flip to see who goes first, Bob.
Let's have you go first, Bill. I'm anxious to hear your answer.
Well, what led me to my work in nonprofit is anything but a straight line, for sure. Started out pursuing a music education degree at Ball State. And when I was about finished with that, I decided I did not want to be a band director after all. And so I thought the next logical choice would be to be a funeral director. It seemed like the good place to go from not wanting to be a band director. So went to mortuary school, did funeral service work for 23 years. And then somehow somebody came knocking on my door, figuratively, and said, "We think you should come and work at the community foundation." And I said, "No, thanks. I'm just fine doing what I'm doing." And that person wouldn't take no for an answer. So what I found is, I guess when I look back, and your perspective is always different looking back, what led me to my position at the community foundation is all the people that are placed in your path along the course of your life and influence you in some way. Everyone has an effect on what you end up doing and how you end up developing as a person, from your vocation to the other things that you enjoy and your life in general. So I guess my answer is, what led me here is all the people that were placed in my path along the way.
Great answer. I sort of follow the same sort of circuitous path. Hey, Jennifer, by the way, it's good to see you. Same circuitous path that Bill did, is that I was an elementary ed major in college, and was about a semester away from graduating and doing my student teaching and all of that stuff when I came to the stark realization that it was in everybody's best interest that I not be a teacher. Just was not ready, didn't feel like I really had the patience or maturity level for it, really. And so I decided to go work on a psychiatric inpatient unit. Me and Bill make these very logical leaps, I think. So I went to work actually as a substitute teacher in a psych hospital, and ended up working on a psychiatric inpatient unit, and really discovered that I really love working with people. Just love working with people, but then also loved working with people that came from all different kinds of backgrounds and that were having all different kinds of issues and problems, people that were marginalized, people that were different than everybody else. Just sort of found out that I really enjoyed that sort of line of work. And so I always tell people I'm now in, I guess, my 32nd year of doing my summer job. And I've just loved it. So it was, the first couple of years it was a private for-profit psych hospital, but then ever since then, I worked in nonprofits. And I guess just sort of growing up in nonprofits, I just didn't know any different. I just thought that this was always the way it was, that you were around like-minded people, mission-minded people that were a lot of do-gooders that, were kind of out working for the good of a greater community. I just always thought that was the way that the world was and that what everybody was doing. And really, I think what drove me more to cement myself into working in nonprofits and doing it was really working in Porter County and working, being kind of in the Northwest Indiana region, but specifically working really in Porter County and the nonprofit family that we have here in Porter County. It's unlike anything that I've ever seen. I had a chance to work for a while in Knoxville, Tennessee for about 7 years. I was in Lexington, Kentucky for about 3 years working down there. And those are all great communities, very giving, very supportive communities, but it's nothing like Porter County. And the nonprofit and just the marriage between the nonprofits, the church and civic groups that we have here. It's just unlike anything that I've ever seen. And so it was just something that I've always really wanted to do and be a part of. And just, you really feel like you make a little bit of a difference every day. And so I can't really see myself ever doing anything different than what I'm doing and working in nonprofits in some way, shape, or form.
Now, do I answer the question? That's it. Okay.
Yeah. Welcome, Jennifer. Yeah,
Sorry about that. Technical difficulties.
no worries.
What brought me to nonprofit? Well, first of all, I work with Bill and Bob on different community projects. We sit on a lot of groups together, and they're wonderful gentlemen. They run awesome nonprofits. So it's kind of an honor to be with them sitting on this panel tonight. So thank you again for inviting me. How I got into nonprofit, I'm kind of similar to Bob. I don't know any different. I grew up living in poverty, actually in the neighborhood I work in now. First one in my family to do high school and then on to college. But then I actually left Valpo for about 20 years after I graduated undergrad and worked all over the country with mostly Boys and Girls Club, but a couple different nonprofits. I don't know anything else. I'm good at it. I think you can learn a lot in the classroom, but you learn more by doing it. Learn it, do it, teach it, know it. I don't think there's a book that teaches you everything. I think the longer you're in it, the more it becomes a part of who you are. It's almost a lifestyle, we used to say. It's just helping people, and helping other people is a way that I was raised, because I had some wonderful people help my family when I was younger. So again, like Bob, Porter County is pretty amazing. So, I mean, people do more here, they give more here. The civic mindedness that is Valparaiso and Porter County is really rare to find in other places. And I've worked nonprofits all over the country, New York City, Denver, Florida, and they're good. It's just a little bit different in Porter County. And it's unique and special. And I don't know that I could ever do anything else. So I have puppies, so my apologies.
Well, thank you all for answering that first question for us. We have our first question from the audience coming up here. And this is a reminder again, once again, for all of you, if you have questions as you are watching this panel discussion, please feel free to submit it in the Q&A function here on the webinar. And so our first question comes to us from Meg Bell. And Meg asks, what is the best part of working for a nonprofit? And what is one of the biggest challenges you face?
Can I answer that one first? the best part is meeting people named Meg Bell. I got a chance to meet Meg, and I got to know her for a little bit ago. So great question, Meg. It really is. It's meeting people that, want to get involved and want to make a difference. And, people like Meg that, are exploring, how they can get involved and do different things and figure out like how they can use their passions and their talents and their skills to help and to make our community better, and to make, our mission statement at the VNA is making best days possible. And it's such a simple thing, but it's something that we live and breathe and do and try to do every day. And I think anybody that works, in nonprofits has really that sort of same mission. And so, meeting young people that want to set out and just make the world a better place, it's the best thing. It's just like meeting people like that. It makes it all worthwhile to me. So thanks for that question, Meg. It's good to, I guess I don't get to see you, but good to hear from you.
I'll go ahead and go. The best part is probably no 2 days are ever the same at all. And I like that. And we get to see, for the most part, we have clients, we all have different people that we serve, but we get to really see the good side of humanity, the people that give to us, those that we can give to them. We always say many hands make light work. So the amount of people that give food or dollars or just their energy, their spirit, I get to see that. So it's hard for me to focus on anything negative when there's so much positive coming in so that we can help other people. The hardest part is that no 2 days are ever the same. You never know what you're going to do. I happen to know at least even Bill shovels snow on certain days. I don't care what size nonprofit you work for, there's always something new to learn that day. So that's probably the most challenging part.
That is true. Shovel snow, pull weeds, whatever it takes.
Yesterday, I learned how to change the soap dispenser in our automatic soap dispenser machine in our men's bathroom.
Oh, could you come and teach me?
I will do my best. It was at least an hour and a half of work for me, but we got it done.
You have soap? What am I doing wrong?
We're living large.
If you allow me an inch of latitude, I will derail this entire evening. So, Aaron, you're going to have to pull me back in. The best thing from a community foundation standpoint, our mission is to raise permanent money that will be in this community forever. And we work with a lot of generous people and people who don't know they're going to be generous, but they eventually become generous. And seeing the joy in their faces and in their attitudes when they learn that they can make a gift to the community foundation that will last forever and support their favorite charity like Hilltop or the VNA forever, sharing that joy with them is beyond words. And then when on the other side of that, when we get to take money to Hilltop and the VNA, seeing the joy on their faces is almost as good as sharing that joy with the donors. Oh, and I was supposed to say the most challenging thing. I would say working with Bob Franco.
Yes. I hear that all the time.
The most challenging thing really is when you have your day planned out, but something happens, a phone call happens, or somebody comes in, or some situation arises that requires immediate attention, and then that forces you to reprioritize what you thought were your priorities. So the need to be flexible is sometimes a challenge.
Thank you all for your answers there. I apologize if my screen froze a little bit. I'm experiencing a little bit of some slow connectivity, but it looks good right now. So I'm going to go ahead and forge on ahead. Our next question that we have comes to us from Tasha Abraham. And this is an excellent question related to the difference between for-profit organizations and nonprofit organizations, which is the difference can easily be confused there. So Tasha asks, how do you see for-profit entities since your perspective and experience, or because of your experience and perspective in nonprofit organizations?
I'll start. It's, I've been at the VNA now for just about 2.5 years. I didn't know a lot about hospice. That's the main thing that we do at the VNA is provide hospice care. We also have a palliative care program, and we are also the Meals on Wheels provider for all of Porter County. So we're serving some 250 people a day, meals. And we have a Phoenix Center, which is a grief program for kids. And we have a Lifeline. That's that I've fallen and I can't get up button. We have about 165 people on that program. So all in all, we're serving like 500 people a day in Porter County, and well, really across 6 counties. So we make quite an impact, but I didn't know a lot. And our main book of business is hospice. And I just didn't know. I've worked in healthcare my entire career in mental health and substance abuse. And then the last 10 years in primary care and community health and population health and public health. But I didn't know a lot about hospice when I came. And when I got here 2.5 years ago, people often ask me, well, what's like the biggest surprise, that you had when you came into hospice? What was one thing that you didn't expect? And I'm sorry, what was the person's name who asked? Tasha, was that her name?
Yeah, Tasha, yes.
Tasha. So Tasha, your question was great because when I got here, I had no idea about the level of competition that existed in hospice care. And almost all of the competition is from private for-profit interests. So, like in Northwest Indiana, for example, there's about 45 to 50 hospice organizations, and there's only 2 or 3 of us left that are nonprofit. Everybody else is private for-profit. And, nonprofit it's just a tax status, really. At the end of the day, we like to make a profit. We like to be able to generate revenue, make a profit so that we can roll that into our services, pay our staff more, increase our service area, do more services and all of that. So we like to make a profit. We've been very good at being a nonprofit for several years, and we're correcting that ship these days. But the biggest surprise was competing with private for-profit operators out there. Because they just have a whole different sort of business model. And I am not going to say that any of those people that do hospice work, I'm not going to say a bad word about any of them, because anybody that does hospice, in my opinion, are angels on earth, whether you work for a private or nonprofit organization. So, but they just have a different business model, than we do. And we can't, as a nonprofit, we can't compete with some of those private for-profit organizations out there that are very, very well capitalized, that they have some very deep pockets. Some are big national organizations that have the power behind a big national organization behind them. So, they have very big marketing budgets. They could send out 8, 10, 12 marketing people out to the hospitals and nursing facilities. I got 2. And so we've got to try to make do with the best resources that we have. So what we talk about it all the time, I call it swimming with sharks. When you have to compete, and it's a very unlevel playing field. It just is when you have to compete with private for-profit operators that, like I said, are very, very well capitalized and sometimes don't function with the level of ethics and integrity that we're held to as nonprofits. So we swim with sharks. And so what we always talk about is that, well, we're going to beat them on service. I can't match them dollar for dollar on their marketing budgets. I can't put everybody in nice polo t-shirts and, send them out and, with the muffin marketing and doing all of that stuff. Where we're going to beat them is on service and on the depth and breadth of service that we provide. So we just have to understand it is a very uneven playing field that we're playing on out there. We have to accept that, and then we just have to figure out like where are those points of leverage where we can beat them. And so that's a great question, Tasha, and it's something that even on our Meals on Wheels program, there are private for-profit services out there that deliver meals to people. So we have to it seems weird, that we compete to feed people, but that's, at the end of the day, if people are getting fed, that's great. But we're always going to do the right thing. We function with a high degree of values, integrity, and dignity. And we're always just going to do the right thing on that. And where we beat them is on service.
I'll go ahead and we're a very small nonprofit, and compared to VNA and even PCCF. We deal, I guess we'll say, in low-lying fruit, meaning we don't have a marketing budget. And I like how Bob said, we do compete with some for-profits, but we really target the low-income folks. And then we have to make up the difference so that they can afford a quality program. But if you have a good year, just like Bob said, then you take your extra resources. And the difference between nonprofit and for-profit is you take those extra resources and you put it right back into your mission. Are those dollars going to go back to expanding your capacity, expanding your program, paying your staff a better wage, doing things like that. And another nonprofit CEO from Porter County told me, economies of scale, we're much smaller. We can't compete with some chains and things like that for some of the services we do. And that's fine with us. Maybe that means I have a smaller staff so I can pay them a little bit better, or I can make sure they have flexibility in their hours or things like that. Because, there are people that do similar things that we do, but not everything is regulated through one main service. I've worked for larger nonprofits and it's been great. The reason I'm very happy at the smaller one right now is I have a lot of flexibility with what I do and how I manage my staff to a certain extent, and what kind of programs we're doing and things like that. And first of all, let me say VNA, I've been blessed to have a couple family members use the VNA and go through the VNA. Awesome program. I don't even know where to start with the amazing things that they do with the Phoenix Center and the Meals on Wheels and Porter County Community Foundation. I support to my level of giving. It's not a huge amount, but I also refer people to them as well. And that's one of the nice parts about Porter County, is referring people to other nonprofits. We kind of all look out for each other. And I think everybody's pretty good, at least from a nonprofit side, about staying in their lane and working together, collaborating. A lot of the funders and profits want you to collaborate to save money instead of doubling up. So the big difference for me is, like, I really like what Bob said, is we had a really good year last year, believe it or not, because there was a lot of grant opportunities, and there's been some very lean years, and we're trying to not get so big with these grants and these services that what we build is not sustainable. And from a smaller nonprofit perspective, I think sometimes it gives us more flexibility.
And I know this is true, Jennifer, for your group, and thanks for the kind words about the VNA. And I know this is true about, you have the same sense of vision about this, but I think the best way that I've heard to encapsulate the difference between what we do in nonprofits and what for-profit groups do is my old CEO down in Tennessee, who's still my mentor. I talk to him almost every Saturday morning. He's famous for saying, we go where the grass is always browner. So when other people are leaving a community and vacating it, and just leaving people to be marginalized, that's when the nonprofits come in. That's when we shine. And I know, Jennifer, that's what you do at Hilltop, and you do that with pride.
That's for sure. And I think it might be maybe good for your audience to take a look at the word nonprofit, because it's a misnomer and it's unfortunate. And it has a negative connotation. Whenever you start something with non, it automatically tells you that's not something I want to be involved with. So I really hate that term. I don't know what the alternative is, but sometimes I fall back on maybe like a cause-driven organization instead of nonprofit, because if any organization is going to exist, they have to take in more money, or at least as much money as they spend. And ideally, they take in more, which means they're making a profit. In for-profit work, the main goal, the reason that business exists, is to make money. In nonprofit or cause-driven work, the main purpose the organization exists is to address some community need or societal challenge or create some opportunity. Their main purpose is not to make money for the owners or the stockholders. We answer to the community, not to an individual owner. And no one, the profit or the extra money that a nonprofit cause-driven organization brings in is not divvied out then among the owners. It remains in the community to do the work that needs to be done, that the government and for-profit businesses are not doing very well, if they are.
Yeah, thank you all for sharing that. On that note of kind of the subtle difference between nonprofit and for-profit work, I was hoping that all of you could express your thoughts on why anyone would want to work at a nonprofit organization. Could this be either because of money, because of the chance to move up, personal growth? Why would somebody want to work at a non-for-profit organization?
You get real good at budgeting even your own income and trying to make ends meet. You get real good at that. Like I said, I grew up in this, and I just can't imagine doing anything else. Why would people want to work in a nonprofit? I think, it's a calling, number one. You sort of get called to do this, and whatever field it is, so my wife is the development director for a homelessness group. That's a passion. Nobody just sets out to say, gosh, it'd be great to go work with the homeless, or work with folks with substance abuse issues, or work with folks with developmental disabilities, or work with, I have no idea how our hospice nurses do what they do. No idea at all. And I'm around them every day. I couldn't do what they do for 10 minutes. So I am in awe of the work that they do. And in all of these things, and all of the fields in nonprofits, whether it's the arts, whether it's music, whatever it is, it's a calling, and you answer that calling. And somehow, like Bill was saying, there was a knock on his door one day. And I guess when you're a funeral director, and anytime anybody knocks on your door, that's a good thing, or maybe not. But we all have that figurative knock on our door at some point, that it's a calling, that we come and we answer it. And what you find out is the field will tell you if it's a good match or not. It will either embrace you and bring you in and never let you go, or it will spit you right out. And I'm sure we've all, like on the panel, and anybody, said, somebody says, oh gosh, I really want to go do this. And they get into it and find out, boy, this really isn't my passion. And this isn't really what I wanted. I thought what I wanted to do, and that's okay. So why would you want to do it? I think why you would want to do it is because you're answering whatever it is that's inside of you, to go, answer that call.
I heard, well, choose a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. So I absolutely agree with Bob. It's a calling. But it's also a very difficult job. So you have to have a passion for it, because you're not going to become rich. You're probably not going to become famous. You're going to do it because you love to do it. And I can tell you that we have at times have high turnover. You can have, we leave bodies in our wake. It is a really long day at any nonprofit I work at, but at this particular one now, it's hard, and you're doing multiple different things. And if you don't love it, you will not last doing it. It's mentally probably one of the toughest jobs. Well, because I've done it so long, one of the toughest jobs that I see new people struggle with is the amount of emotion that goes into being really excited about what we do and wanting other people to be excited too. And then when they're not, you're disappointed that they're not as excited. I absolutely believe that if you want to do nonprofit work, you'll know. And if you don't, you'll know. And if it's not for you, that's completely okay. And if it's not for the next guy, that's fine. But sooner or later, you'll find your right match. And when you do, it is amazing. I mean, you can have those little moments, those special moments. I take 5 minutes out of every hour I get up from my desk and I go spend time with our kids or a client, or I read a thank you letter or something, just to fill my bucket so I can turn around and fill somebody else's. It is absolutely a wonderful life if that's the life you're meant to live. And if it's not, it'll chew you up and spit you out like any job. just like any other job. It has all kinds of HR issues and marketing and all the things that go into a for-profit go into a not-for-profit. But it is a wonderful life if it's the life that's right for you.
Somebody once told me a long time ago that where the needs of the world and your talents meet, that is where you are called to go. Now, whether that's in nonprofit or for-profit or just hiding out under a rock for the rest of your life, I'm not sure. That you just have to be open to the opportunities. And if it happens to be in nonprofit, try it. And if it doesn't work out, go somewhere else.
The next question I have for you all, thank you all for your thoughts there. What kinds of careers are available in nonprofit organizations? And I'll add to this a little bit. For those that want to work in a nonprofit, how can they, what advice do you have as far as getting into a nonprofit job? Because there are all sorts of ways. Some ways are through internships, some ways are through people find job postings on LinkedIn and they apply. What's your recommendation for getting into or breaking into the nonprofit field? So
I like to start with this one just because we do so much with VU already. Volunteering at different nonprofits will give you a really good view into, is that the right nonprofit for you? And, there's so many opportunities to volunteer at all of our nonprofits, and you can volunteer from everything from bookkeeping to hands-on with the clients to maintenance to ground, everything. Volunteering is the lifeblood of nonprofits. And it's also a great way, if you're in school right now and you want to beef up your resume, volunteering in that specific field or interning in that specific field or work study in that specific field or different ones. And I taught college for a little bit myself, not at VU, but just trying to tell my students that, they might be working at KFC while they're going to college, but that's not the job they want. And I'd say, go volunteer somewhere that's related while you can, just a couple hours here, a couple hours a month, and start working on your resume. But more importantly, start working on your life experience, because you don't want to get all the way through school and realize that's not what you want to do. So volunteering is hugely important, I think.
I'm anxious to hear what Bill has to say about this one.
Well, you'll be disappointed, Bob. Well, let's go with the first part. What kind of jobs are available? Almost any kind of job is available in a nonprofit. It's some kind of nonprofit organization. Finance jobs, accounting jobs, marketing jobs, floor sweeping jobs, teaching jobs, the whole gamut. Pretty much every career, almost every career that exists can be done in a for-profit or nonprofit arena. And the second part of your question, at the Community Foundation, there are only 5 of us. And since we don't have any programs, we don't run programs, we don't really do that much, not like Jennifer and Bob. So we don't have any need for volunteers. And because what would I do then? If somebody came and volunteered, I would have nothing to do. But volunteering is certainly, that's probably the best way to get a sense of what a life in cause-driven work could be like.
Yeah, I think it's, part of it is like Bill said, you could do any job that's out there could be done in a nonprofit sector too. I mean, we very, very professional positions. We have CPAs, we have attorneys, we have everything in the nonprofit world somewhere in there. So you could do just about anything in the nonprofit world. I think what it comes down to is like, what's your passion? Is there a certain population that you like to work with? Is there a certain disability group that you really feel, maybe you have a family member, who had some sort of experience with that, or whatever. I think it really sometimes comes down to like the population that you want to work with. So a lot of the people that come, that sort of find themselves being called to the V&A, for example, really like geriatrics. They really like working with older adults, and they get those opportunities to do that in our Meals on Wheels program and hospice and palliative care. So I think part of it is just like, what's the population that you like to work with, and then you can find, your niche in there. And you can make a good living. You can make a very good living in the nonprofit world too, just like you can in the for-profit world. It's just sort of like, what is your motivations? If you, really want a very big, high paying job, and, you're seeking, like Jennifer said, you're seeking fame and fortune and, whatever else it is, likely not going to happen in the nonprofit world. But my dog's all excited because Mama's home. So Bill, there I am. I'm not the only one home anymore. But if you really like being a part of something greater, if you like being a small part of something greater, then you can find whatever it is that you want to do in the nonprofit world too.
We have another question. This again coming from Meg Bell, and so Meg asks, do you have a story from working in a nonprofit that you still reflect on today, which motivates you to stay on this path?
How much time you got? I'm sure we all do. Yeah. Jennifer, I know, like, you have awesome stories over there, like the families and stuff that you work with. I mean, you've got to have some golden ones.
I think there's a story every day, success story and failure stories, and both equally as moving and motivating. If there is one story, I was working not at this particular nonprofit, it was another nonprofit in Florida, and we had a child come in, he was 18 months old, and it was a horrific case of child abuse. And the child, we're running an HIV/AIDS shelter, and the children would be removed from their homes, and they'd come into the shelter while they were waiting to find foster care. And this child, this is probably a pretty rough story, but it definitely motivates me, had been beaten on every part of his body. He had tether marks and burn marks, and he had a fractured skull. And when we were doing his body check, when they come in, it was the only time in 30 plus years of nonprofit work that I had to step out of the room. And I got a pretty strong personality, if people know me. And I said, I have to step out. And I had to step out and take a couple minutes. And then I went back into the room because that was my job. And I needed to be there and do what I needed to do. And I still think about that little boy a lot, because if we're not there and we're not doing whatever the service is, it doesn't have to be that extreme, then little boys like that are going to be put into situations like that. And that is not okay. And I think every nonprofit provides some filler of some void or some hole or some service that the human beings are not getting, even whether it's just working for churches or whatever, feeding someone. If we're not there, no one's going to be there. So that's a story that I probably think about more often than any other.
I think about this one is sort of, it's not even a patient that I worked with or was even a patient, but I often think about, like, so, like in graphic design and art, there's a term, negative space, right? I mean, it's like when you draw a picture and the white space between, like, whatever it is that you've drawn, sometimes there's design in that, right? And on purpose or not. And I often think of this one as like a negative space story. And that was when I worked in Tennessee, and I worked at a big federally qualified health center. So it's a community health center that we were both a community mental health center and a community health center. So we were doing public health stuff. And this was in Knoxville, probably 10 years ago. And there was this tragic story about, I think it was a high school or it was a middle school principal that committed suicide, and in the middle of the school year, and like in a weekday. And so it was, headline story, is on the news, TV stations and everything. And we came in that next morning, and there was a group of us standing up in the administrative suite, and we had the newspaper, and we were talking about it, just like, God, how awful is this? It must be awful for the kids. It must be awful for the family. And I wonder what was going on. And, just all the stuff that comes to mind when you think about that. And our CEO came walking up, Dennis, the one that I was telling you about, that's still my mentor. And he came walking up to us, and he said, well, what are you guys doing? And Dennis, I just got to frame the story a little bit. Dennis is from Southwest Iowa. Okay. So if you know anything about people from Iowa, number one, there's this thing called Iowa nice. They're just nice people, but people from Southwest Iowa say about 4 words an hour. They just don't talk. They just say very, very little, right? They listen great. And when they say things, it tends to be sort of profound. And so keep that in mind. So we're standing there and we're talking about this story, about how awful it is. And Dennis walks up and he asks, well, what are you guys doing? And we said, well, gosh, did you hear about this story about this principal that killed himself? And Dennis says, yeah, I heard that. And he says, boy, we sure let him down. And we were all like, oh, well, no, Dennis, he wasn't our patient. He wasn't our patient. And Dennis said, exactly. And then he walked away. And we were all like, damn it, he did it again, in one word, by saying exactly and just walking away. Those were our marching orders. Those were get out and do your job. Go out and find people who have yet to cross our threshold, that are out in the community suffering, people that need our help, that didn't access our help for whatever reason. And so I always think about not just the patients that we serve, and I have tons of stories about mental health, substance abuse, primary care, now in hospice, just great stories, tragic stories. There's a million stories, but the story that I always think about is the story I don't know about yet. I think about the people, for the 500 people that we're serving today in the VNA in some capacity. I think about the 60 or 70 people out there right now that are suffering, that don't even know that they need our services, or that we have services available to them that can help them, that they're out there needlessly suffering. And when we're all just standing around in the office yakking and looking at the newspaper like a bunch of dopes, we should be out finding those people and making sure that they understand the resources that are available to them. So I think about that white space story. I think about the people out there that are needlessly suffering, and what are we doing about it?
Wow. I can't even come close to those two stories, but maybe I'll try to bring the mood up a little bit. I think often of a lady named Vera. I met her about 4 years ago when I got called to an appointment to visit with her and her estate planning attorney in the attorney's office. The attorney was working with Vera. Her husband had died. Her only son had died tragically. And she was nearing the end of her time with us. And the attorney thought it would be a good idea for Vera to figure out what to do with her assets when she died. And there were a couple of nieces and nephews who were very well off themselves. They did not need her assistance financially. And she had 4 organizations that she really cared about. 3 were in Porter County, 1 was not. And the attorney was telling her, this is Bill from the Community Foundation. And I told Vera, I shared with her what we do, how she could leave a gift upon her death, and we would make sure that it got secured, and would then send an annual gift from her funds to each of these 4 organizations that she loved. And that would go on forever. And she looked at her attorney and she said, is he telling me the truth? I can leave a gift and it will last forever? And her attorney said, yes, Vera, this is how it works. And she paused for a moment and she said, well, I'd like to do that. It brings me great joy. So being able to help people like Vera continue their love for their favorite organizations is
And nephew
story.
Bob and niece Jennifer were right there, ready to accept
Right.
a forever gift.
That's great. Thank you. The next question that we have comes from an anonymous attendee. And so their question is there a nonprofit organization around the area or in Valpo in general that you all recommend volunteering for in this time, such as is there a specific one that you recommend, or does it not matter what it's for?
I'll answer that. just from my end, there's United Way has a volunteer center website where you can actually go through and learn about each nonprofit. And that helps you pick one. I think they're all absolutely wonderful. Different ones have different requirements. I'm pretty sure Bob has a lot when you're dealing with end of life things, a lot of trainings for the volunteers. We have a lot of background checks and things like that. So I think it just depends on how much time they have available. But United Way is a great place to start to look at some of the different nonprofits.
Great answer. Yep.
I tried to volunteer at Hilltop, but I couldn't pass the background check. So I went to the VNA.
We don't accept anybody who plays the tuba.
Wise.
Well, very good. We're coming towards the end of our time, so we probably have time for maybe one or two more questions from the audience. The next one that we have is, was there a moment or reason that caused you to know that you were competent or fulfilled in your role?
Oh,
Those are two very different things. Competent, I wonder every day. Fulfilled, yeah, every day I'm fulfilled. But most of the time I still wonder, how did I get here and who thought I could do this? What am I doing? Just try not to mess up. So
Yeah, I'm laughing about it because like I 100% with Bill, and sometimes I exaggerate this, but really I'm not. This is just a little secret, but just between us on this call, right? I spend a good 75% of my day not knowing what in the hell I'm doing. Every day it's a matter of, like Jennifer said, every day is different. You have to figure things out. And I just always constantly just depend on tomorrow Bob is going to be smarter than today Bob. Doesn't always work that way, but I think the minute that you fool yourself and think that you have this all figured out and that you have all the answers is the day you're going to get taught a really important lesson. So yeah, I feel fulfilled every day, just like what Bill said. It's like, I go home every day knowing that at some point today I did something, or my organization did something to make the best days possible for somebody that we did, or that we worked with. And so that fulfills me every day. But competent, I mean, when you work in nonprofit, especially when you work in leadership in nonprofit, it humbles you really, really quickly. And if you don't appreciate that, and if you don't embrace that sense of humility that you earn by being in this position, like I said, it's going to teach you some real valuable lessons real quick, and probably lessons that you don't want to learn. I'll keep quoting Dennis, my buddy down in Tennessee, but one of the things that he said is that he told me two things when I decided to leave that job and go into being a CEO, at a health center, and now here, he told me, number one, he said, it's the loneliest job in the world. And he's a psychologist by trade. And he told me that, I'm a social person, even though I consider myself sort of an introvert, but I'm pretty social. I like to be around people, sort of a pack animal. And he said, it's a very, very lonely job. You have to make decisions that are going to impact a lot of people, and you have nobody to talk to about it. You just have to make the decisions and trust yourself that what you're doing are the right things to do. And, what he would always say is that to lead the orchestra, you have to turn your back on the audience. And that always just sticks with me. And so, no, I don't always feel competent. I'm confident in, as long as you're doing the right things, good things will follow. When you're doing the right things, the money will follow. When you're doing the right things, the community support will follow. When you do the right things, good things will happen. And so I just constantly ask myself, am I doing the right thing here? And sometimes doing the right thing is the really hard thing to do. Sometimes the easy thing is the shortcut and not necessarily the right thing. So it's competent. Yeah, it's a humbling job.
I think I agree with both Bill and Bob. I do spend a large amount of my time kind of thinking in the back of your head, oh my gosh, what if people realize I have no idea what I'm doing? But I think a lot of jobs are like that. I think there's a lot of life is like that. I think everybody is probably standing around having very similar thoughts. And about 10 years ago, the Community Foundation actually put together this, I called it our CEO support group. And I had just become a CEO. I had, done other jobs and been very frontline program staff and raised a significant amount of money over the years. And I had no idea how to be a CEO. And so within a couple of months of becoming a CEO, it already started getting bumpy. All the stuff they don't tell you about was happening. And the Community Foundation put together this group of, at the time, I think it was 10 CEOs. And we went away on this retreat to this camp, and we spent a couple of days together, 24/7. We were in cabins, and they divided us up. And some of these CEOs I was very intimidated by because they're the CEOs of very large nonprofits and very successful. And I'd see them in meetings and group, and they always look so put together. I think that's a secret too. When the curtain goes up, the show goes on. They always said the right thing and did the right thing. And I'm like, oh, and Hilltop made me CEO. We're doomed. But this group, we got together, and it was the best weekend I've ever had as a CEO. And we became very close. I still consider every one of those CEOs very good friends. We continued to meet as a secondary group for years. And then we ended up meeting separately. And some of us still meet today for lunch about every other month. And we talk about CEO things, the pressures of being a CEO or working for a nonprofit. And it just makes you feel better to know someone else is going through that too. So I think, reaching out to Bill or Bob or any other nonprofit CEO in Porter County, if you had a question, it's really nice to be able to pick up the phone and not have them laugh and go, oh my gosh, you did that. It is a very warm group of CEOs. I don't feel competitive with the other nonprofits in Porter County at all. We're all doing our best, and we're pretty good at picking up the phone and talking to each other. So again, that was something that I was able to get my first couple of weeks. I would not have made it through my first year of being a CEO without that group for just lack of confidence. But they carried me through that first group, and then we continued to have training moments, and we had a book club, and we might have went out for drinks a couple times, different things like that. And every year it got a little bit easier. No year is totally easier. No day is totally easy, but I'm a little bit more confident. And someday I hope when another new CEO comes on that was as green as I was, to be able to help them a little bit too. So yeah, it could be tough. And being lonely at the top is correct. You got to make some very big decisions. It's not always popular. You have to make business decisions that involve staffing and insurance. And, these are big decisions. And in addition, you're helping, real people, not widgets. So yeah, I talk a lot too.
No, I remember my first CEO job in Kentucky 5 years ago, and I went to my very first board meeting, and they handed me the budget, the financial packet, and it was a $21 million budget. And they handed that to me, and I, honest to God, I don't know how I didn't say it out loud, because it was in my head so loud, like, nobody can think this is a good idea, that you've put me in charge of this. And I only had that feeling one other time in my life, and that was when my son was born. And the doctor handed me my son, and and I was holding my kid for the first time, who was minutes old, thinking, this is a terrible mistake. So I've had that feeling twice in my life, that this cannot possibly turn out well, but it has.
Well, very good. Well, we will end our session tonight with that. Thank you to our wonderful panelists. I'll give you a applause from here. I'm sure the rest of our audience would give a virtual applause. We just very much appreciate your time with us this evening, just sharing your expertise. I know I'm personally inspired all the more as an administrator at a nonprofit at Valparaiso University. So with that, Tom, do you have anything else that you'd like to share?
Just to reiterate what you said, Aaron, thank you very much to all three of you for sharing your experiences and advice. Enlightening, and as you said, Aaron, inspiring, really terrific. We appreciate your interest in Valpo and our students. And I know you have other things going on in the evenings. We appreciate you taking an hour to spend with us. The students, again, the video of this will be on our YouTube channel.